Hey friends, we didn't forget about you on the Hot News channel. We would never do that. It just, going to Taiwan and you know how life is. I would have called you, but adulting, right? Am I right? Anyways, we're back with Hot News on the Hot News channel. How you doing? Congratulations to everybody who's shown up in the meantime while we've not been releasing videos. Really appreciate every single one of you. Running a second channel is fun. Okay, let's get into it, which is AMD bringing out some new information about Navi and just how things that they said on stage is not really what they meant, but it's kind of what they meant, but only if you get into the nuance of it. And then there's also some Zen 2 stuff that's not quite. Anyways, let's talk about that. So the big announcement that actually came with AMD's Navi reveal was the fact that the RX 5700 or Navi in general was going to be based on a brand new architecture called RDNA, and that it wouldn't be based off of GCN or Graphics Core Next, which was the previous one that things like Vega have been built on, or the RX 580. So that was a huge revelation because the rumors that were coming out beforehand was saying no, Navi is actually going to be a GCN based architecture and it's not necessarily going to be something completely new. But then Lisa Su was like, it's new! And then everybody was like, oh, that's so amazing! But it turns out after the dust has settled that Navi actually isn't exactly brand new. It's not a new micro-architecture. It's complicated, okay? It's the high-level maths that are going on right now with how explaining how this is working. So basically, the Navi setup is a hybrid solution between RDNA and GCN. It's basically a stopgap measure to move on to a fully RDNA setup. And this was initially put out by SWE Clockers or SWE Clockers, Swedish Clockers, however you want. They initially posited the fact that this might be the reality, and it was a rumor at the time that Navi was indeed a stopgap measure. But then there was some debate that was happening over on the Phoronix forums with somebody from AMD specifically talking about how yes, Navi technically is still based on GCN depending on how you define it, with him saying specifically you could call it a hybrid, but not in that sense. We used to talk about GCN as an ISA meaning instruction set architecture, but it seems that most people outside of AMD think of GCN as a microarchitecture instead, that is an implementation of the ISA. RDNA is a GCN ISA, but not what you think of as a GCN architecture. So it's based on the ISA, but it's not based on the microarchitecture. However, the idea is that the next generation of AMD GPUs, which is believed to be codename Arcturus, although there's some complication around that. Anyways, that's when we're going to get a full RDNA setup. The reason for it being hybrid is thought to be to allow for, let's say, PlayStations and Xboxes and a whole bunch of other games to still be backwards compatible with the previous generation so that they don't have to write a new instruction set for a brand new architecture. It's one of the main reasons that is why it's hypothesized that Navi will actually be a hybrid and not necessarily something new, but then the next generation will be new because then they'll have had time to work with the RDNA microarchitecture, even if it's not with the RDNA instruction set. We'll get back to you on that. So AMD claiming it is, but it isn't, but it really is. And that's kind of the same thing with the next thing about Ryzen 3000 CPUs, where Lisa Su showed up on stage and talked about, hey, look at Ryzen 3000. It actually has a 15% IPC improvement. But then companies like MSI, who had videos put out about X570 motherboards, their data actually said that the IPC improvement of Zen 2 was 13%. So Lisa Su putting out something that's higher than what was actually reported elsewhere, and there was clarification from Robert Hollick of AMD talking about why they made this change. Specifically, he said, prior to presenting on stage at Computex, we plan to use Cinebench one thread derived IPC figure. That's 13%. Slides were made and shared. In the end, we decided that it was best to use a more rigorous spec int derived figure that is 15%. So AMD decided to use the bigger number instead of the smaller number because, hey, it would look better. And they decided last minute to do that. Why wouldn't you just decide ahead of time? If you knew it had 15% uplift somewhere, why wouldn't you stack the deck with that? Why even put out a 13% figure anywhere? I'm not blaming AMD for this. This isn't a huge controversy. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they wouldn't just stick with 15% from the beginning instead of just publishing the Cinebench anywhere, unless, I don't know, they weren't ready for this presentation? I'm confused. But companies snack the deck all the time. That's what they do. That's what keynotes are for. But you know what else keynotes aren't for? Threadripper, apparently. But AMD CEO Lisa Su, that's a weird way of phrasing words, Brett. Anyways, in an interview with PC World, discussed afterwards, saying that there would definitely be more Threadripper coming, especially considering the lack of a 16-core launch right now. It could be that launching a 24, 32-core Threadripper as the bare minimum could allow them to also launch the 16-core AM4 at the same time. Excuse me, hiccups. With Lisa Su saying, you guys, people on the internet who speculate about things that we put in our roadmaps and then take out, like, why would you think that we removed it? What's wrong with you guys? Like, don't you know that doesn't mean anything? It's just pictures. And then let's talk about AMD market share one last time before we end this hot news piece, which is the computer hardware people that constantly put out their CPU sales numbers in Germany. Anyways, they've released their latest May 2019 sales figures, and what we see is that AMD still has a commanding lead of the sales, coming in at 66%, whereas Intel is selling 34%. It's actually kind of interesting to see that sales ticked up in April or in May over April for AMD as a whole, because most people would have been waiting for Ryzen 3000. So I'm curious as to why they saw an increase. But market share continuing to dominate, at least with one retailer in one country for a couple sets of AMD chips. It's good stuff. AMD ruling and reigning and making up stories and sending out slides that aren't what they're gonna actually promote. Why? Confusion abounds, but you know what? We only have to wait till June 10th to find out more at the E3 stuff about Navi, and then July 7th is when we can finally buy X570 Ryzen 3000 stuff. So hold on to your wallets until then, or don't. I don't care. Spend your money the way you want to. I'm Brett, and I want you to spend money on Displates. Check out our link in the video description, displate.com/UFD Tech Official, and enter UFD as a coupon code to save 15%. I believe that's the ad spot. Wow, I'm rusty. I'm so sorry, everybody. Spend your money on Displates. Buy dope Displates. You can get these. We have a super awesome Goku over there. Anyways, check out our link. You'll see all of the ones that we have. And that's it. I'm Brett with the Hot News Channel. Love you too. You're amazing. Thank you for sticking around when we're neglectful. Appreciate you. Bye.